Well, I think, as you rightly said, Bright has, in this characteristically detailed manner, walked us through the structure of the transaction, both from a technical and a business angle. I would like to look at this from my wearing my CDD governance hat, from a governance perspective.
Correct.
Right. That so when you put it in this larger context, it is clear that our international reputation for the integrity of the international contracts that we enter into it's been at stake for some time. We remember that we have had problems with judgment debts going way back, and it has not even stopped. Only yesterday, I happened to see a new arbitration, a new intent notice to take us to international arbitration by one of the companies, foreign companies in this country. We went through a process of trying to clean up that problem, that mess of international arbitration, judgment debts, and the like. All of them are rising out of our international contracting relationships. I do not know what came out of that effort in the past. And now with Airbus and this one, we are now also added a reputation for corruption to our already sullen, in my view, sullen reputation for not basically keeping our word when it comes to international contracting. So the country's reputation actually, and for that matter, the brand, is at stake. And we ought to take this very seriously, because we cannot, on the one hand, go around the world drumming for business and for investment, and yet be seen as a country where either we do not honor our word when it comes to contracting, or that in order to do business here, you have to basically go through this kind of arrangement with intermediaries, dealing with politically exposed persons, and passing out bribes and the like. I think what this speaks to is that the framework, the regime that we have set up internally as a country in doing international contracting is broken. It's clearly broken. If you look at the 4 milestone areas, I mean, the 4 points where monies tend to pass, like that Bright laid out. These processes are usually in our system led by political actors. Of course, with some of their, own, favorite bureaucrats or civil servants in tow, but these are led by political actors going out to make the deal, sometimes even bringing in the third party. Political actor has something to do with that. When the deal comes, going to negotiate the contract itself. Oftentimes, political actors lead these things. Then, after that has been done, the approval of the transaction, of course, by Parliament, is obviously a political forum. And then, of course, tax waivers, same process, right? So we have actually turned the entire contracting process from the front end to the back end, over to political actors to lead, which exposes them, of course, to these kinds of corrupting influences. And it's clear that the intention, the original idea that parliamentary oversight would somehow discipline our international contracting process and inject some integrity into it is completely lost. That idea of the framers of the Constitution definitely has not come to pass. So there's a problem there. And so I think that for me, the real reason we need to take this not as an isolated case. It is not. It is not. The Airbus case is not. Basically, there is a systemic failure here. There is a problem with the way we are set up as a country to do business with the outside world, with too little independent review. I remember that for many years now, Dr. S.K.B. Asante, who is an international lawyer of repute, has served on exit arbitration panels, has done a lot of work at the UN level on transnational investments and the like, has been advocating advocating an independent review process, right? An independent review process that where you have, some, experts or, contracting experts like to review some of the agreements that we make and at least render an opinion on it for the benefit of the political actors before they make decisions on these things. And it is clear to me that we really need to step back and look at this process we've given ourselves. It's not working. It's exposing the whole process to huge corruption risk and rigging. And it is costing the country inordinate amounts of money that we do not have to waste. It's not going to be solved by just moving people around, because I've said it's clearly a systemic failure here. It's not going to be solved by just changing one government, bringing that government, doing that and that. Clearly, we need to step back and look at it again and realize that it's not working. We all know, sometimes we pretend we don't know these things. We all know these things, right? That the processes that one has to go through to get these things passed. The executive goes to sign a deal, right? Sometimes they even conclude the deal. Basically, it's essentially sent to Parliament as a fait accompli. And that pressure then passed, because if you have already concluded the deal, essentially, and you are sending it for ratification, it's not supposed to be for ratification, right? You're actually supposed to, why don't we have a process where you don't conclude the deal? What Parliament does is not ratify. It actually is the one that gives the green light for you to proceed to complete the transaction, right? It's not ratification. Ratification means that it's a done deal and we are coming to give you retrospectively the appropriate authority that you did not have previously go into the deal. So we should stop thinking of Parliament's role as ratification. Parliament's role is an approval role, which we must see as a necessary, as you lawyers would say, as a condition precedent to actually even sometimes going ahead to finish the deal. Just you can send Parliament the term sheets and say, these are the key provisions of the deal. This is the draft. What do you say about it? But when you already conclude the deal, essentially, and then you use certificate of urgency or emergency, whatever they do in Parliament, to basically essentially just mobilize all the majority votes to vote for a deal, that's an abuse of the process. You're making mockery of the process. So the political class is essentially making mockery of the process that the framers of our Constitution wisely thought they had put in place to mitigate these kinds of risks. It's not working. We need to step back and probably get people like SKB Asante and look at his proposal of this independent review panel that goes through every one of these international agreements and contracts, and also do some value for money analysis. These are not, we almost behave sometimes as if we are alone in this kind of world. These deals are fairly commonplace. We can do price comparisons across country. We can check how deals like that are working elsewhere. But somehow, everything here is almost like, a brand new deal. It's like we are so insular, we don't even care to look at how this same kind of transaction
and that has gotten people
was executed.
That has gotten people very worried about what some label as the unnecessary third parties, intermediaries or consultants or agents.
But that is the structure of these deals, right? When you look at it, when you look at Airbus, this is standard operating procedure. This is the modus operandi. That's how these international bribery deals occur.
So people ask the question, Prof. People ask the question, Prof, and I want you to tell us if they are justified. That I employ you in the civil service, say in the power ministry, you have all these host of experts within the ministry. And yet, if you need to buy one small power-related item, you will ignore all these persons and expertise and go look for a third party to lead the process. Like we're in COVID-19 pandemic fight. We need to buy PPEs. You know that the Ministry of Health could simply check the prices and get a procurement process to buy. And yet, we will look for a third party who has some expertise in the areas, and often they don't, like in the Airbus matter, to lead the process? Are people justified in these concerns?
I think this is essentially a rhetorical question. I mean, I think you know the answer to the question. I mean, you have to ask yourself, why do we do things this way, right? Why must we structure these kinds of transactions this way? You know, why must we, for example, if we know we have a particular need, we know the kinds of contracts that we tend to enter into. I am a bit surprised that to date, we do not have like model agreements. A lot of the time, people who come here to contract bring the drafts of the contracts that they want to sign with us. They are the ones who bring the drafts, and we react to their drafts. And any lawyer, any transactional lawyer who has been in this business will tell you that whoever's draft you use, right, basically has a leg up, has an advantage over you. So we know, for example, that we are going to enter into power purchase agreements. We know we are going to enter. Why don't we, as a country, we have an Attorney General's department. Why haven't we our own model agreements that basically tell us the terms there? We ourselves have put them in there. So we know for every deal we have, this is what every one of those deals that we do, this is what we are looking to get as a country. We can vary it based on negotiation with the third party, the contracting party on the other side, but basically we have a frame or a structure of the agreement that we want. And then when you come to us with your proposal, we fit it into our model agreement. We do that. I mean, I think GMPC, I don't know if they still do that, but GMPC usually like has some model agreements like that. We must have these almost across the board. In all the areas where we do repeat business, we as a country, led by our law firm, the Attorney General's Department, must craft agreements, model agreements, which represent the country's preferred position on these transactions. And of course, we should be willing to vary them based on negotiation with the other contracting parties, but we must go into these things with our own drafts, not responding to drafts brought by people, and then they have deal structures we may not even understand, and we won't consult. We won't consult experts. You know, experts have become a funny word here these days. But I think we have set ourselves up to fail, and to fail intentionally, because there is private profit to be made at the public expense. You know, all of the milestone points are high-risk corruption points in the point of signature, the point of parliament approval, the point of the waivers. All of these we know. We know these are open secrets in this country. We wait a scandal like this to come, then when we act as if we are surprised, but we know.
Like Professor Kwekwasari suggests, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission appears to be handing us some leads, at least, even though it does look more than mere leads. The question is, the state is able, on the basis of that evidence, perhaps also using the legal regime of the mutual legal assistance to procure the hardcore evidence, and on the basis of that, do its investigations and prosecute the various state officers, the government officials and other persons who have not been named here, to do a prosecution. Are you surprised that, unlike this case, unlike the Airbus situation, where within hours of the story breaking, the president, gave an order, a charge to the special prosecutor to proceed and investigate the matter, and in this one, nothing is heard?
Well, I mean, basically, when you look at, and what I'm surprised by is the fact that here we are, claim to be a country that is interested in fighting corruption and illicit flows of money to from the south to the north. We make a lot of these noises about exploitation of poor countries by advanced nation business persons and all of that. And you have international, foreign investigative bodies who are using their own resources, right, to investigate these transactions that cost you money. It didn't really cost them money, right? This transaction did not cost the US a single dime. If anything, it may have gone to enrich Goldman Sachs and some other players. So these are international bodies who are enforcing their own laws, essentially to your benefit. So I see the work they are doing as almost a subsidy. They are giving us almost like a subsidy. The SEC and the DOJ in the Airbus cases are essentially subsidizing our own very weak, investigative resources. So once we get, they provide us with evidence of this sort, because that's all we usually say. Where is the evidence? When you make an allegation, they tell you where it is. These guys have gathered substantial evidence, substantial pieces of evidence. All we have to do is connect the dots. We say, thank you for doing our work for us. We couldn't have done this. We really probably were not interested in doing this. But now that you've given it to us, the least we could do is follow through and get our own investigative and prosecutorial authorities then to basically do the, connect the dots, do the little internal bit we have to do, and follow through. Even that we are not willing to do. Whether or not the president authorizes, the president basically, given the nature of the independent prosecutor's office, the whole idea was that they would not act on the instruction of the president. I don't think you need even the president to tell the Office of Special Prosecutor that this is another case for you, right? This case follows along the same lines as the Airbus deal. Intermediary, government exposed person, government official, same kinds of structure, right? So obviously the precedent has been set.
Okay.
The O ought to take notice of this, and it's obvious that this falls within its remit. If the first one does, this one does too. So for me, it's not really a matter of, and I personally would not like a situation where the OSP's prosecutorial or investigative powers are triggered upon the say-so of the president. That was not the idea, right? So I would rather that did not even happen, that it would not take the president to say, Mr. OSP, investigate this. The OSP should know that this matter has come up, the evidence has been gathered, preliminary evidence has been gathered by a credible foreign body. The information is out there in the public domain. What are you waiting for? Just take it and basically work on it.
All right.
I think that we should get to a point where it does not take a precedent. I think the whole idea of the OSP would not even have come about if we respected the traditions of the AG's office historically.
Exactly.
The AG's office historically is not actually supposed to act. It's not actually the ruling party's lawyer. They are not supposed to investigate on pressure from presidents or from other political actors. They are the one member of the cabinet who actually have a separate constitutional authority that mandates them to do their work independently of control from political actors. They can be fired if you don't like what they're doing, then you take the political hit for firing them, but they are independent in the prosecution that they are doing. So if we the traditions of this office historically, from the common law tradition, from Anglo-American tradition, we would not have needed even the OSP. And now that we have created the OSP, we shouldn't make it into another AG where they have to act because the president says
and very interesting views there. And I was asking whether or not there is any legal sense in suggesting that Airbus was a judgment, this one is not a judgment, and that is why there's no swift, action, if any at all.
No, I don't. I think the question is correct. I mean, we have, and Bright too. What Bright is suggesting is that we don't have to wait on the U.S. authorities to complete either their civil case or to commence a criminal action, which usually follows. But they do these things, they use all the tools at their disposal normally to get a lot of leverage over the person who, over the defendant, so that if they want to settle, for example, if they want to disgorge the illicit money you have made, a civil suit looks like the ideal way to go, at least at first. And then if you cooperate, maybe they can bargain with you and say, okay, if you cooperate, we'll waive the criminal, we won't go criminal with you later on. So in the US, they use all these tools just to get the maximum leverage they want to. But I think that if indeed we can show that these contracts were procured corruptly or by fraud or in some way, yes, I mean, it's within our right to actually, basically undo the contract. Except that, obviously, in this case, who has clean hands here? I mean, our own representatives as a country who went into this contracting, it's not like basically we were hired by these people, right? It's not like a case where there's a unilateral, fraud against Ghana. We, our own representatives, are complicit in this. And I think this is where things like the law on causing financial laws to the state comes in. If you look at the Cotton case, the Cotton was a case where we didn't even proceed against, the US proceeded against the American citizen who was involved in the US court. And then we went after our own citizens in our own local courts who were complicit in that transaction. After that case and that judgment by the late Justice Afre, it looks like the political class has gotten a bit of cold feet about that law. I haven't seen it very much spoken about, but this is the kind of law that's supposed to protect the public fisc. It's supposed to protect our treasury from kinds of deals where persons who are agents, who are supposed to represent our interests in these kinds of transactions, basically either look the other way or become complicit with third parties to dupe us. And that's where I think, so we ourselves are complicit somewhat in this.
In a minute, what will be your view on a suggestion by some member of parliament that they are interested, and they may be interested in a bipartisan, process to investigate this?
Nothing. I mean, if the Parliament has the power to do this, nobody basically, maybe they've never activated that power, but Parliament has power to actually take on a matter like this. It doesn't matter that they are indicted in this. Well, I don't know the particular individual players in this, but Parliament definitely, it is within Parliament's remit to actually call hearings into this matter. Parliament has put itself in all kinds of binds that it shouldn't be bound by. But if Parliament wants to do a hearing on this, it is absolutely within its rights to do it. Whether or not it's going to do it, and whether or not, in fact, the process in Parliament would even allow this to happen, right? Whether or not somebody is not going to play a gatekeeper role to stop all of this from happening, it's another matter.
But your major interest is to have an institution like the OSP get into this and deal with it exhaustively.
At least after the fact, yes. But I think that basically going forward, we need to look at the structure of these deals and how we enter into them and how we conclude them and find some process. Some process that basically is independent of the political actors. That some at least technical advice. Look at contracts, look at the whole transaction, and then say this is a good one for us. That's not a good one for us.
Very grateful, Professor AKSA Prempeh.